All right, let's start. Noon Eastern on Fox. Michigan, 4.5-point favorites. Over under 45.5. Can't wait to talk about this game. I like Penn State. So before I give my reasoning,
I don't understand. I forgot my wig today.
put my clown hair on. All right, so I'm gonna recommend Penn State. I'm 0-3 on Penn State sides this year.
Oh,
And let's go over why I like Penn State here. All right, so first of all, I will say that Michigan's a very difficult team to pinpoint just how good they are. They played essentially nobody so far. So I've talked to a couple people who I really respect who make this line 3, which is where I make it. And then I talked to people that I really respect, including you, that make it around 6, right? So, and because it comes down to like, all right, you're beating these teams so bad, but you should. And then how good are they? And you don't have really strong data points. So a lot of it's based on priors and then adjustments throughout the year, and people handle it differently when you're not playing great teams. So where are the cracks on this Michigan team? So when I look at this, number one, the offensive line is not as good as last year. Drake Nugent, excellent center. I think he's a slight downgrade from Oluwatimi at center, but he's still excellent. Zinter's still there, and he's excellent at one guard spot. Keegan's at the other guard spot, but he struggles. But the tackles are the big question. Barnhart was the weak point last year. He's still there at right tackle. Ladarius Henderson, the Arizona State transfer, has not been good. He replaced Ryan Hayes, who's now on the Dolphins. He got drafted there. Big drop off. So the tackles aren't as good. And if you look last year, McCarthy's been great under pressure this year, but they played nobody. Last year under pressure, his numbers dropped precipitously. So what's going to happen? By the way, because the offensive line's had a drop off, the running game has not been as good. I mean, they haven't got a push a number of times throughout this year. They did last year against Penn State. Their run game was so much better, and Penn State spent their entire defensive line, because of that game, spent the entire offseason bulking up. So they have a lot more bulk up front. They all added like 10, 15 pounds. But this offensive line going up against an edge rush that could get back Chop Robinson, he's going to be a first-round draft pick defensive end. I think he's going to play from what I've seen and heard. That's enormous. Abdul Carter, he's a great pass rusher. Sutton and Isaac off the edge are great. I think you're going to get Vanover back as well. Tons of depth. The Michigan goes slow. You can rotate. I think they're going to get pressure on the outside, and this Michigan run game is just not there right now. It's been all McCarthy. Edwards, I don't think, is fully healthy. The offensive line isn't run blocking as well as it did last year. Drop off at the tackle spots. So, and look, Penn State's secondary it's excellent. Number 1 success rate. The only blemish is Marvin Harrison getting thrown the ball a million times. No one's going to stop Marvin Harrison. Michigan doesn't have a Marvin Harrison. So I think this Penn State defense can get pressure. And this is just a big step up in class for Michigan, right? Going from playing clowns, speaking of clowns, for 9 weeks, and then going on the road in a hostile environment to play a team that's kind of in your weight class. There's going to be a shock to the system, right? Going up against these kind of athletes, and you're going to have to adjust. So, with these offensive line issues, there could be some communication issues early on. And look, McCarthy's been excellent. I have to give him credit. He's been great. The wide receivers have been great. The tight ends have been great. But I think Penn State can match up, can get pressure, and this Michigan rush offense is not going to have nowhere near the success that they had last year in this game. On the other side of the ball, what can Penn State do? I don't think either team's going to have much success running it. The Penn State tackles have been great, but the interior has been bad. Their center, Norzad, he's been bad. Wormley at guard's been bad. But Fashanu and Wallace, they've been great in pass protection on the outside. And, they can handle, I think, Harrell, Moore, Stewart, McGregor, all those pass rushers. So when I look at the tackle matchups against these great edge rushers, I think Penn State at home is going to have the edge. I don't think either team's going to run the ball. I mean, you're not going to get – Michigan has Grant, Jenkins in the middle. They just have houses, and then you're playing in front of Colson and Barrett. And Penn State hasn't been able to run up the middle anyway. I don't think either team's going to get much running. So can Penn State throw the ball? This Michigan secondary is very good. They lost a couple pros. They haven't been tested at all. I mean, look at who's the best passing offense Michigan's faced this year? Name one. UNLV.
It's bad. I mean, I'm loaded up here to talk about strength of schedule. It's bad.
Of course, Michigan, their entire secondary grades out elite. Like the UMass transfer corner, Wallet, of course he grades out elite. They've played. I mean, you go back to Michigan State, ECU. These offenses have been so much worse than we even thought. ECU is the worst offense in the country. So I don't know. Their secondary, I think, is vulnerable. And Penn State finally threw the ball down the field. That's what I've been asking them to do. That's what they need to do. And 10.8 at ADOT against Indiana, the biggest of the year by far. Then last week, they're throwing it down the field. Dante Cephas finally shows up. 6 catches, 2 touchdowns. Yeah, he didn't have more than 2 catches the entire season in any game. So I think that Aller's playing more confident. They're going to hit some downfield shots. I think this Michigan secondary might be a little more vulnerable than people think. I think they're going to get pressure on the other side. I think Michigan is in jeopardy of losing this game, but I make it a field goal. There's also, I don't know, this is not part of my handicap, but what is the impact of the sign stealing? What is the impact of the distractions of everything that's going on? I don't know. That could only help Penn State. Not part of my handicap, but I like the Nittany Lions here. Plus 4.5 or better. I think this sets up as close field goal game either way. I think Penn State's going to get off to a fast start, and their defensive ends and edge pressure is going to create some problems for McCarthy and company. So give me the Nittany Lions. I'll take my clown mask off, my clown hat, while you make your case for what you like.
I enjoyed seeing Manny Diaz on my Instagram today, who did a bunch of hand signals to his wrist, to fingers, all other kinds of stuff. And then he finally says, that's, by the way, everybody, that's signals for get here early, get loud, be extra loud on 3rd down. Like, Manny Diaz is cracking jokes about sign stealing. I mean, no one at Penn State's ever come out and said they did this to us and they did that to us, but Michigan routed them last year and it was on the ground. And I just for 1 second have to think that Jurisic and Diaz are like, how'd they know what we were going to do? So, I mean, it's very uncharacteristic for me to see that on my Instagram, but I agree with you. I like Penn State in this game. I'm not positive I'm going to play it. Financially, I don't have any money in this on the side because I'm so invested on Penn State futures that I have to have this game. I may get into it for a unit or whatsoever, but I do like Penn State, just for the record. Now, the over is where I have money on this week. I don't expect either team.
You got to at least dabble. Come on, because we got all the shit talkers saying we can't get a Penn State game right. We both agree. You got to at least put a little money on it.
All right. Listen, I'll put a green dot in the app. I'll put some money on it, but I am so heavy in Penn State futures. It doesn't.
I'm with you.
It's crazy. Listen, I like the over in this game. I've got money down on the over. I with you, I don't expect either of these teams to be able to run. I think what you do when you get these teams that have these strength of schedules that are so bad, right? Like Michigan's 111th, but you see all these rankings that are top 5 and everything. I mean, it doesn't matter. Havoc, pass rush, coverage, big play, quality drive. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what I say. They're all top 5, but your schedule is 111th. So what do you do when you have a team and their stat sheet pulls out like that? You pick out the ones
that was Penn State's as well before going into Ohio State, right? Because they played nothing but clowns. They had the same exact profile.
Right. So what you do when you see that is you go and pick out the ones that aren't stellar and you say, well, this is actually a real problem. Because if you're not able to pull this shit off against East Carolina and UNLV, what are you going to do when a real team plays you? So when I look at the sheet, Michigan's offensively 40th in line yards, they're not going to be able to run. They're 107th in standard downs explosives. They're not going to be able to create any kind of chunk yardage play. 1st and 10, 2nd and 7, 3rd and 4. You keep going down the list. Like, I mean, there are certain holes in here. Defensively, they're 82nd in allowing explosives on standard downs. That's a problem. They're 71st in creating pressures. Really? With this schedule? Like, and that's cumulative pressures, right, on the season. So they're 93rd in broken tackles. They've allowed a healthy amount of broken tackles. There are things with this Michigan defense that really are not lining up with the perception of what this team is. I mean, you could listen to any kind of media outlet in the world, and they're going to tell you Michigan is big and beefy and bad and mean, and I don't see it. But Penn State likes.
How about the Bowling Green game? I mean, Bowling Green got pressure. McCarthy went 8 of 13, 140 yards.
Yeah,
2 touchdowns, 3 picks. They only averaged 5.5 yards per carry. The other thing is last year under pressure or with a harder schedule overall, McCarthy 1 big time throw 7 turnover-worthy plays.
I'm getting there.
And I think Penn State's going to be able to get pressure.
Yeah. Well, I do like the over here. And the reason is because Penn State, I'll start with, I'll go to the Michigan side first. The question is, can McCarthy handle one of the highest rates of blitz? Now, Manny Diaz blitz 51%. Guys, national average is like 28%. Manny Diaz is just nuts with his blitz. He's coming after McCarthy here. And if you look at the overall numbers, you're right. McCarthy was 1 big time throw in 93 pressure dropbacks last year. This season, he has 8 big time throws. But I mean, stuff we go round and round. Is a Bowling Green pressure a little bit different than a Penn State pressure? Probably a little bit faster, a little bit more on top of you. I would say so. McCarthy this year is only seen a 10% drop in adjusted completion rate when it comes to pressured pockets. All I can do is go off that and say, I think McCarthy's going to have success when they send blitz. I'm not saying it's going to be Marvin Harrison's success, but they're going to be able to move the ball a little bit, but they're not going to be able to do it by running. You go to the other side of the ball.
They'll hit some explosives. That's the one blemish on this. If you look at the Penn State defensive profile, it's explosive because they're aggressive, right? Man, blitzing, and Michigan has some. I mean, they have some really talented tight ends, some really talented wide receivers. So they're going to hit some explosives for sure. So yeah, I agree with you there.
When you go to the other side of the ball, what is going on with Mike Yurcich in this offense? Like, why are you only attempting 15 passes over 20 yards through 7 games in Ohio State? And then the last 2 games against Indiana and Maryland, you've tried 12 passes over 20 yards. You've nearly equaled the previous 7 games in 2 games. Is that, I wondered if that was Maryland or Indiana's defenses, but you go to Mike Yurcich making comments earlier this week after a practice, and he said the efficiency just wasn't there. Now, he wasn't specific. Was it Dante Cephas? Was it Keandre Lambert-Smith? Was it Drew Aller throwing downfield? He wasn't specific about what the efficiency wasn't there for him to allow Drew Aller to throw downfield, but all of a sudden it's there, and Penn State has an appetite to throw downfield. I expect both these teams to have scoring opportunities. That doesn't mean I think that they're going to get touchdowns every time. I mean, that's the whole thing about playing totals. People are just like, this team's fast. This team scores a lot. To me, it's about scoring opportunities. I believe Penn State and Michigan will get themselves into scoring opportunities to get over this number. I make it in the low 50s. Let's go over. I'm joining you on Penn State. Shit, I'll go buy a clown wig if they lose. But I mean, I'm with you all the way. This Penn State appetite for big explosive plays could be the difference maker. Both ways, though. All right. It could backfire the other way. We'll see.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the difference could be the home crowd step up for Michigan and the tackles, their weakness at tackle. Get Chop Robinson back, those edge rushers, and the Penn State tackles have been really good in pass protection. I think that's ultimately the difference. The thing that I worry about is, because I don't think either team's going to run the ball. Is it small game, James? Is he like this? We've seen this story before. So trusting Penn State, we'll see how it works out. But really looking forward to that game at noon.